podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Wednesday, November 20. Thank you all for watching on YouTube and on Facebook. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, please do so. The Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America. Driven to be different. They are a top fleet employer in Canada by Forbes magazine when we're talking transport. Also brought to you in part by La Bittt Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager, a refreshing thirst-quenching beer, perfect for cool fall days. Only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light and ultra refreshing. And also brought to you in part by Playground. Step into the world-renowned poker experience at Playground, where free food and drinks, a cash game tables, a bad beat jackpot, weekly promotions, daily tournaments, and unmatched customer service await you. Why play anywhere else? Just minutes from downtown Montreal, across the Mercier Bridge Playground. My wife had a relatively productive day there yesterday, as a matter of fact, so which is kind of cool. We bring in, speaking of productive, he is very productive every day for TSN. He's their hockey analyst and their director of scouting. Craig Button, how are you?
I am great, Tony. And, you know, what your wife was doing is that it's your birthday on Saturday. She's trying to get a little extra cash to buy you that convertible you want. I think you want a convertible, don't you?
You know what? I'm not going to lie to you. Cars has never really been my thing, but
nor mine.
Yeah, no, really. I'm a rather simple guy. Rather simple guy, but yeah, no, that's okay. I know you agree with this, but if we can ask for one thing, it's health, because without that, we don't have anything, right? So you and I are on the same page in that regard. All right.
Yes, we are.
Speaking of the same page, there are several that are on the same page as you and Chris Peters. And was it Steve Dryden that was part of the Core 4 under 24 that we find on tsn.ca? Is that it?
That is it. The Core 3 doing the Core 4.
Pretty cool. So talk to us about that. We'll talk about the Canadiens practice from earlier today, by the way, where Patrik Laine once again took part. No contact from him, but he was like involved in line drills, and he was looking very, very comfortable. It was very encouraging to see. There were some signs of frustration from Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook, which I guess are par for the course when some players do not produce. We'll get to that a little bit later. But I want to start with the Core 4 under 24. How did that all come about?
Well, we've been doing it for a number of years now, and you know, when we started to see the league really trending to the younger players having a real important role on teams, and you know, being the key to what the success would look like in the future, we decided to undertake this this exercise to identify. So, who are the Core 4 players on each NHL team? How deep does it go? And we do a ranking 50 players that we call the top 50, and certainly there's going to be a debate about that, and it's all good. And we try to categorize them: AAA players, a superstar; AA's elite; A is a first line player or a first pair defenseman, and a B player is a second line player or a second pair defenseman, which is nothing to sneeze at. So we go through the exercise, and you know, we're watching the players over a long period of time. We try to find a balance, Tony. We're trying to find the balance between what a player is and the potential of what a player could be. And, you know, as you get more information, you get more comfortable with what the player is, and you're going to adjust your rankings and your ratings accordingly. And obviously some younger players are going to have a little bit more leeway with respect to the potential carrying a little bit more weighting than it does for an older player that has really shown, okay, this is what I am. And there's going to be movement. There's going to be movement within the course of a season. There's certainly going to be movement from season to season. We try to capture that, and we try to go through this exercise to try to give fans a glimpse of what their core players under the age of 24 look like throughout the organization.
So I'm going to give, for those who haven't had a chance to read it yet, but if you have an opportunity, go out and take a look at it on tsn.ca. You'll see it. It's the front story. Number 10, and we'll go all the way down from 10 to 1, are the Columbus Blue Jackets. Number 9, the Dallas Stars. Number 8, the Ottawa Senators. Number 7, a team that I would have thought off the top of my head that would have been in the top 3, and we're going to discuss why they're not. The Anaheim Ducks. Number 6, the Chicago Blackhawks. Number 5, the Minnesota Wild. Number 4, the New Jersey Devils. Number 3, the Detroit Red Wings. Number 2, the San Jose Sharks. And number 1, the Montreal Canadiens. Craig, from what I see here, and you definitely described it really well with the AAA grade and the AA grade and the A grade and the B grade. But one of the things that takes you a long way in these rankings is also depth. Having more of these AAA, AA, A, and B prospects. If your total is a higher number, you have a much better chance, of course, in being top of this list.
There's no question. I mean, quality matters as well. Like you could have a number of really good Bs, and Bs are important to any team. You don't want to diminish that. But when you have AA players and A players, I mean, now we're talking about the quality. When we talk about Montreal's first 6 players, they could put a starting 6 out. Fowler in the net, Hudson and Gooley on the blue line. Then you have Slavkovsky, Caufield, and Demidov up front on the forward group. They're all AA players, and certainly players that you feel are going to be like real instrumental. And Jacob Fowler ends up 6th on the list. Michael Haig ends up 7th. I mean, the quality goes so deep. You've heard me say this so many times, and it bears repeating. The Montreal Canadiens have their prospect cupboard stocked. They have all the shelves stocked. They have all the different positions stocked. And that's, their third year of this rebuild. And I know there's been some impatience in Montreal from some quarters, but you can have a plan, and you can have a plan to rebuild. And so they put the plan in place. Now you're going to be judged on how you execute it. And it doesn't happen with the snap of a finger. It doesn't happen overnight. But the Montreal Canadiens are executing this plan, and there's going to be steps to this plan that have to show real progress. So bottom line is, the easiest thing to do is say we're going to start a rebuild. Jeff Molson, the owner, talked about it wasn't easy, wasn't sure that it was the right thing, how the fans would accept it, how they would embrace it. And now it's important when you start to look at how they're executing it. I don't think there's any question they're executing it superbly. And now you go to the next stages. How does the team start to perform as these players get into the lineup, start to grow and develop? I mean, there's players that are on the team now. There's some players that are going to be on the team in short order, and there's some players that might be a year or two away. But the bottom line is Montreal is executing this really nicely, and there's every reason to have full confidence in the Hughes, Gorton, St. Louis administration.
Perfect. I'm really intrigued before we get to the Canadiens by Anaheim. Tell me why Anaheim is number 7 on this list.
They don't have, they just don't have the same quality at the top end. Like Leo Carlsson's a really good player. But you start to go down the list and you start to look at the players. Like, yeah, they have some good players. They do. They have some good players, and don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have anywhere near the number of A players that Montreal has. They have some good, they have some A's, but then they have a bunch of B's. And, one of the interesting things, and I talked about this in the outset, Trevor Zegras for us a couple of years ago was a AA player. Then he was an A player. He's no longer an A player for the Anaheim Ducks. And that's been what we could call a precipitous fall.
Yeah.
Alexis Lafreniere is different. He's gone from a C to a B to an A. So when I say we're always trying to adjust and trying to watch and see where players are at, over time, you get to have a lot firmer, I guess, opinion of where the player is. You know, when they're younger, you're going to give a little bit of bandwidth to their potential. But as they get older, they got to continue to show that they're deserving of that designation. And the Anaheim Ducks just don't have they don't have the quantity and they don't have the quality that the Montreal Canadiens have, and some teams ahead of them.
Yeah, and you know what? I saw that because you have a couple of organizations that have 10 players on it. You have a couple that have 9. You have a couple that have 8. You have a couple that have 7. And I think you have Anaheim at 6. So that would probably explain it, right? Because you talked about quantity. They probably don't have enough quantity. You know,
they don't. Well, they don't. Again, like, you know, you look at different teams, like and you're going to see it when people go through it, and you see how we've tried to do it with AAA players. So the San Jose Sharks have Celebrini. We have Celebrini number 3 in our top 50. We only have 3 AAA players: Jack Hughes, Connor Bedard, and Macklin Celebrini. Then we have a number of AA players, and you know, like AA, like you're going to get a little more weight. If we used a grading system and a weighting system, it would be really a 4-3-2-1 grading system. You get a 4 for a AAA player, you get a 3 for a AA player, you get a 2 for an A player, and you get a 1 for a B player.
Makes sense.
So that's how we kind of work through it. We see if the numbers match with what we think is the quality and the quantity, and then we go from there. And we don't want to penalize teams because they might not have as many A's, because B players are really important to a team, and you have to recognize that is not a negative in any way, shape, or form. We can debate, well, maybe there's a B player that people think should be an A, maybe there's an A player that people think should be a B, but you know, they're every bit as valuable to your team and what you're trying to do to have success.
Let's bring up that list if we can. I was just taking a picture of it. There you have it. Shane Gaumont, thank you so much. That was me with the cell phone taking a picture of it, but I think we could see it here. Cole Caufield, left winger, age 23, AA grade. Ivan Demidov, right winger, age 18, AA grade. Slavkovsky, left winger, age 20, A grade. Lane Hudson, left D, 20 years of age, A grade. Jacob Fowler, 19-year-old goalie, A grade. Caden Gooley, 22-year-old left defenseman, A grade. Michael Hage, 18-year-old centerman, B grade. Joshua Roy, 21-year-old left winger, B grade. Logan Mailloux, 21-year-old right defenseman, B grade. And David Reinbacher, 20-year-old right defenseman, B grade. One of my questions, I'd like to keep this up if we can for a while, thank you, Shane, is how much did you contemplate, or you, Chris, and Steve contemplate bringing Lane Hudson up from an A grade to a AA grade?
I'll tell you what, it was like, great question, Tony, because it was like you were in the room. It was like you were listening into the conversations. And so here's what we ultimately got to. We really think that Lane Hudson has got some unique qualities. And, you know, and Juraj Slavkovsky has taken such a big jump, you know, through the last half of that last year, and clearly shown. We're going to allow Lane Hudson to continue to grow. Remember, it's core 4 under 24. Like, he very well could be a AA. If we had to do this again in February, we might say, hey, listen, you know, we have to have him as a AA player. But certainly Lane has those qualities and those attributes that make him special. So there was a lot of discussion about Lane Hudson specifically about being in that category. And somebody said, well, how can you give Demidov, you know, a AA and not Hudson? And it's a fair question. But, you know, as much as we think highly of Lane Hudson, I think what we got to is that Demidov and what he's doing in SCA at this age is a pretty special player. And that's not to say Lane isn't special, but you've heard me say this. I think Demidov at the same age is better than Michkov. Michkov's having a terrific season, and Demidov is really, in my view, going to be a really top-notch player. I think Demidov has the ability to be special, and Lane Hudson might get there. And we're giving, this is the balancing act.
Yeah.
We're looking more at the potential. Lane is really showing, okay, this is what you see. That's where we get to it. But lots of discussion on that exact area.
Okay. And it's a hypothetical.
Okay.
But the you know, Did his draft ranking have anything to do with possibly the grade? The fact that he was a second-round pick, 62nd overall. And look, you're probably going to say no because Slavkovsky was a first pick overall and he's still an A. Having said that, did it come into play at all?
No. I can say unequivocally, not at all.
Okay.
What we're trying to do, we really are, is we're really trying to assess, and again, the balancing act of where a player is, what a player's potential is. I mean, that's going to reflect itself in the list, and it reflects itself in this list. I mean, Jacob Fowler wasn't a high draft pick. Caden Gooley was a first round pick. Michael Hayes was a first round draft pick. But we think Jacob Fowler is a number one goaltender. A foundational piece for a team moves into that spot. And we want Caden Gooley and we want Michael Hayes and we want Lane Hudson. But no, we can't. If we do that, then the exercise will be easy for us to do. It'd be easy for anybody.
Oh, you're right.
You just rate the players based on where they were drafted and on points. And we spend a good month, spending 3 and 4 days a week. An hour, couple hours during those days, like per day, going through this and trying to refine it. And one of the things that I always compare it to is like doing an eye test. When you go to an eye test and they go better, worse, better, worse, better, worse, and better, worse, and they're flipping the lens on you and everything.
Oh yeah.
We do that. We're doing that regularly. We had something put together on Friday that was, you think it's your final draft. By Saturday, as we all take a good glance at it and kind of do it, we had another hour call on Monday to just finalize everything, to just say, okay, are we comfortable here? Asking ourselves the same question you just asked about Lane Hudson. And, we very well could have made him a AA. Make no mistake about it. We very well could have.
Yeah, I know, but then it's easy to start bumping everyone up a grade, right? And probably it's not realistic. But look, I love the way
Can
you
I just add one thing to you?
Sure,
too?
please do.
And we wanted to be a little bit more of a hard marker than an easier marker.
And I could appreciate that. You want to know why? Because it's easy to be an easy marker. And it's hard to be a hard marker. So that's why I can appreciate that. But I like what you said. Like, it's kind of like a 4-3-2-1 grading system. The 4 is AAA, the 3 is AA, the 2 is A, and the 1 is B. That's pretty cool. Now, and I also like what you said, well, better or worse. That gives you an idea. But were there specifics that you looked at? Did you look at, like, for example, if he's a forward, and categorize him on his skill level, on his shot, on his speed, on it, did you check for X factors? What are you looking at exactly?
All those things, Tony, all those things that you just talked about, like, they all factor in. And then as you get into the groupings, you try to say, okay, Uri Slavkovsky's pretty unique. He's a big, strong, powerful winger. How many are like him? We start to talk about players that are unique, and Lane Hudson's unique. As much as I think Jacob Fowler is a clear-cut number one goaltender in the NHL, like Lane is more unique than Jacob. And Uri's unique because of his size and what goes. And I think Demidov is unique because his creativity is off the charts. His ability to think the game at a high rate of speed, I think, is off the charts. And, I don't have to go into Cole Caufield and the goal scoring ability. So yeah, we're factoring on, like, you're not going to get a AA grade unless your skills are, you're not going to get an A grade unless your skills are really good. You're not going to get a B grade, but it's just like kind of escalating. So you got a little more skill. Caden Gooley, he's an elite skater. He's an elite skater, an elite defender, such a real good, solid player. And to me, that factors in. And Slavkovsky's size and power factor in. And Lane Hudson, how nimble he is. They all factor in. And then we're trying to say, okay, and this is where potential comes in. So we bumped Demidov ahead because we really felt comfortable that he at this point in his career, he's a AA. And people may disagree with that, and that's okay. But if he continues along that track, then it's all good. But it doesn't mean Uri Slavkovsky or Lane Hudson can't move into that AA category as well. We're talking about 20-year-old players, and that becomes tricky when you're talking about some younger players. Cole Caufield will graduate off this list next year. So really, next year when we do this exercise, who's going to be number one for the Canadiens?
Demidov.
He could be, but maybe Lane Hudson gets 54 points this year, and all of a sudden we're going, hey, this guy's pretty special. He is special.
Yeah. I love every time I see Michael Hage's name, by the way, I saw a video a couple of weeks ago of you having a really nice moment with him after he was drafted. I thought that was kind of cool.
He is going to, he's such a terrific player.
Yeah.
There's every reason to believe that he'll be invited to Team Canada's World Junior Camp. And I think that speaks volume about Michael's talents and the way that he has shown that he's worthy of being in that consideration.
That was a really nice moment you had with him, huh?
Well, he's such a great person. And everything that he went through, with his losing his father suddenly and everything, it's a fantastic family. It really is. And, nobody, you talked about health. We talked about loved ones, friends, and family, and how important that is. If you don't have that, you don't have anything.
Yeah.
You have all the money in the world. And certainly, and Michael talked about his dad's favorite team being the Montreal Canadiens. You just know how thrilled he would be. And it's just not, you have somebody that's helped you get to a point in your career. You get to draft day, you're a first round draft pick, and you want the people that matter to share in that. And certainly, the memories of his father are going to be with him forever and the rest of the family, but you just wish that his father could have been there.
For sure. 100%. But he was
a pat on the back.
Yeah, he definitely was inspired. Right. He's probably the one who made Nick Bobov say the words Michael Hage. Pretty cool.
Can I just add something to that real quick? Tony, we had this conversation. I said to you that when Montreal traded up to that pick in the draft, I said they have identified a different tier of player that they want, that they don't feel will be there. What was it, the 26th pick? I think it was the 26th pick. They went from 26 to 21. And I said, and it was Michael Hage. And I totally agree that that player, that quality of player, tier of player was not going to be available at 26.
Yeah. I got an interesting question vis-a-vis David Reinbacher, who you have number 10 on the list at a B grade. I know we had this conversation several weeks ago, and you said, Tony, you know what? Teams have to support the player that they drafted. They got to go with them. And if they were happy then, and by the way, if David Reinbacher ends up becoming a part of a team that could win a Stanley Cup one day, then it's obviously a great pick. But my question to you is, on paper, theoretically, a player that's drafted 5th overall, if a year and a half after his draft date, he's considered a B grade, still very successful in your opinion, or probably shouldn't be, probably should be an A grade?
Well, so if we look at draft position, one of the things I think you have to always keep in mind about the draft, and I say this to players, I say it to agents, I say it all the time. On the day of the draft, where you got drafted is exactly where you should have been drafted, because no team before you got picked was ready to select you, and no team after you was able to select you. So where you got drafted on draft day is exactly where you were going to be picked. So let's just take that. That's number one you got to know. Number two is that after the draft, you can show that you were worthy of being drafted in that spot, or you were worthy of being drafted higher if you were drafted lower. And over time, we're going to evaluate the drafts, and we're going to say, oh boy, maybe this player was better than that player. That's going to happen in every draft. Number three, and I've said this on the Sick podcast a number of times, when you go to draft a player, you look at the player and go, that's what we value, and that's who we want. And the fourth thing I think is imperative when you're scouting and you're evaluating players is have a little bit of bandwidth in terms of how you're projecting the player. So, you look at David Reinbacher and you say, okay, listen, I really like his progress, a right shot defenseman. What do we think his chances are of being a top pair right side defenseman? And you might say 30%. Okay. So then you say, what are his chances of being like a really good, solid second pair defenseman? And you might say 60%. And then you say, well, what are his chances of not reaching that level and he's just a bottom pair defenseman? You might say 10%. So I added up to 100. So if you're realistic about what a player is, it's not that you're not trying to project to the upper end of it, but you got to be realistic that there's a band there. I think NHL teams, to a large part, overvalue their draft picks. I think it's imperative that you know what you're getting and what the sliding scale can be in terms of what they can be. And then you work to develop that player. You're always going to work to help that player be the very best you think he can be. Player's going to dive into that. But if he ends up being a really good second pair defenseman and you recognize that, then you're going to be happy. If you thought it was 90% that he was going to be a top pair defenseman and he's only a second pair, you're going to be disappointed. And teams, they do it all the time. They overestimate their players, and then they become disappointed in them when they don't become what they thought they were. Sam Bennett's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Sam Bennett went 4th overall. All guys that got to have him in the NHL, got to have him there, doesn't get to develop his game. Then he becomes a player that's edgy and hard, and he was that in Calgary. But now we thought he'd be a number 1 center. Okay, well, you made a mistake in your evaluation. You better adjust it. They didn't. They trade him. And what's Calgary looking for? What's every team looking for? Exactly what Sam Bennett's.
Oh, yeah, big time.
So
big time.
That's just one example. And so when you talk about David Reinbacher, and he's got a knee injury. He was in Switzerland last year. Listen, I compared David Reinbacher to Adam Larson. I thought he could be like an Adam Larson type player. Adam Larson in his draft year, a lot of people, he went 4th overall.
Yeah,
a lot of people in evaluation from around the league thought maybe at one point he might be the 1st overall pick. Now, if you're going to be disappointed that Adam Larson's just a rock solid second pair defenseman, then you don't value that. But Adam Larson is a heck of a player. And Jonas Brodin, who went in the top 10 that year, I think, to Minnesota, they don't put up points. Ryan McDonough didn't put up points. They're incredibly important players to a team. And I think David Reinbacher can be that.
Yeah, mind you, points all well taken. Adam Larson had 2 teams that gave up on him.
Well, only
New Jersey and Edmonton.
Ed, he left as a free agent from Edmonton.
Yeah, correct. Yes, yeah, correct. You're right.
So he didn't. Yeah,
right.
You're right though, but that happens. They traded for Taylor Hall. I mean, Taylor Hall ended up winning the Hart Trophy with the New Jersey Devils.
I hear you. Hey, for everyone watching, the Sick podcast tonight was recorded a little bit earlier because, in all transparency, earlier this evening, while you're watching this right now, the game between the Laval Rocket and the Rochester Americans probably came to an end, and I am at that game, all right? I'm at the Laval Rocket versus Rochester Americans game, and this is why I'm broadcasting a little bit earlier today, all right? You got that? All right, pretty cool. Before we get to Marty St. the Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Fruiterie de l'Art, a family-run business and mainstay in the LaSalle community. Since 1995, they're proud to continue offering the same fresh foods and flavors that they have for the past 30 years. From fresh fruits and produce delivered daily to an ever-expanding assortment of deli meats, cheeses, and sandwiches, you'll find personalized service and friendly faces that make you feel like family. And I have to tell you, and I've said this before, that I've been going to Fruiterie de l'Art since 1995, since their opening. And I see a lot of the same familiar faces there, always greeted by Tasso, the owner. It is a family-run atmosphere where they make the customers feel like family. It's always a nice feeling to go there. You actually feel like home. It is pretty cool. So support our sponsors if you can. If you want to support us, support sponsors like Fruiterie de l'Art. Let's hear from Marty St. on the Canadiens being number 1 in the Core 4 under 24.
Ça part avec le scouting staff, Kent et Gortz. C'est eux autres qui amènent ça, ces jeunes-là. Nous autres, notre département, c'est de travailler avec les jeunes joueurs qui amènent, qui apportent. Fait que ça part de là. Puis c'est sûr que dans le stage où on était dans les 2 dernières années, tu veux développer ces jeunes-là, tu veux les amener à une place où ils sont capables d'atteindre leur potentiel, leur plein potentiel. Fait que je pense que c'est un signe que tout le monde sont au travail et ils font leur job.
All right, there you have it. Marty St. says, a lot of big credit to the scouts, to the staff, to Jeff Gordon, to Kent Hughes. Obviously, it's a job well done by them. Pretty hard to disagree with that, huh? Okay, we can take the list off
Can
of
I
right
just
now.
say one
Yep,
thing real quick
yep.
about Marty? Like Marty is so dialed in to all the connected parts of an organization. And you heard what he said. He recognized the scouts first.
Yeah.
And the scouting work. You talked about Nick Bobroff and, Marty,
Marty Lapointe.
Marty Lapointe. I was going to say Marty St. Louis, and I knew it wasn't Marty.
Yeah.
Marty Lapointe, and everybody else that's part of that group, right? And that's who Marty St. Louis recognized right off the bat. Like I've said this so many times. Marty, it to me, is so attuned to how an organization has to run and how it has to be connected all the way through it. And there's just another example.
Oh, yeah, he really gets it. There's no doubt about it. All right, okay. I want to talk to you about Cole Caufield.
Okay.
Because you have him as a double A on that list. And we just talked about Marty, and I'm always willing to give credit where credit is due. I think Marty's done a terrific job with Cole Caufield, because when Cole Caufield was drafted, I heard a lot of people tell me, a lot of people who had a chance to see him play, he's an elite goal scorer. But if he's not going to score, he's useless. And, right, I'm sure you heard that, right? Did you hear that? Let me know if you did. But last year, Cole Caufield scored 28 goals. Some people were like, 28 goals is still 20 goals is still 20 goals, the second most in the team. But Marty said, listen, I'm trying to make Cole a 200-foot player, and I think he's really shown that, and I think he's really coming around, and I think he's really growing as a player. The other night versus the Edmonton Oilers is probably one of the best 200-foot games I've seen Cole Caufield play in a long time. He doesn't score in that hockey game, but he beats and he strips the puck off of Leon Draisaitl, who's bigger, who's stronger, who's meaner, but obviously didn't have the same amount of heart and determination and desire on that shift that Caufield did. Strips him of the puck, gives it to Evans, back to Caufield, to Caden Gooley. He scores that 2-0 nail in the coffin goal. Cole Caufield's become a 200-foot player in the National Hockey League.
Well, and, I've watched Cole for a long time, and he's got that great big smile. He's an assassin. I'm telling you, he's an assassin. And he's mean in a different way, because he's like a pickpocket. You think you're going to eat your ice cream cone, and pretty soon you go, where did my ice cream cone go? And he's licking the cone and enjoying the ice cream in the cone. That's how he plays. Like, one of the things about smaller players, and I've said this many times, and I will continue to say it, is that everybody thinks, small player. Well, wait a sec. Cole Caufield has been an elite goal scorer probably since he was 8. He wasn't 6'2" at one stage and then shrunk to 5'7" in the Who Shrunk the Kids movie. He's always been so he's had to learn how to be incredibly successful at that size, and he's been incredibly successful, and he's smart, and now you have somebody that comes in that can not only look and relate to Marty St. or to Cole Caufield as a player, as an offensive player, he can also relate to him from a stature point of view. And now Marty can take his own experiences and kind of impart them on Cole Caufield. Say, hey, listen, here's some things you need to be aware of. Cole Caufield was top 10 last year in shots on goal. Top 10. His shooting percentage was down. So he was getting chances. He became a top playmaker. And this is where Marty, I think, is when he took Cole and he really tried to take his game and round it out and push it further along. So you're a great goal scorer. So what happens if the other team takes away that element of your game? What are you going to do? Oh, well, they took away that part of my game. I can't do anything. I'll try my best. If I play a game, you got to find other ways to be successful. And for Cole Caufield, and understanding that I can be a really good playmaker, it's going to open up his goal scoring. And when you round out your game and you're able to be better and be more productive in different areas of your game, ultimately it's going to help you in the hallmark of your game, and that's goal scoring. And I think that's exactly what we've seen with Cole Caufield. I mean, I'm not here. I mean, I hear different things. Oh, Cole Caufield had a disappointing season last year. I think Cole Caufield had a fantastic season last year. But if you're going to measure it just on goal scoring, okay, I can understand why you might think that.
Well, 28 goals and 65 points coming off of shoulder surgery in the offseason, by the way. For a guy who's a shooter, I mean, I think that's really something. Marty St. Louis absolutely loved the way the Canadiens played versus the Oilers on Monday, a 3-0 win. He talked about it earlier today. Let's hear from Marty St. Louis.
It was great, obviously, the result, but to me, it's how we won. That I think galvanized the group. You know, you look at our second and third period was you know, look stuff that we talk about, and we were very good in all the things that we talk about, and we made it hard for Edmonton to get back in the game. Our kill was great, and you know, that to me it's how we did it, not so much the result.
Marty St. Louis loves how they did it.
Why would you not like it? And you know, watching that game, there's a couple things that stood out to me in that Montreal. Marty just talked about the kill. I thought their penalty killing was really sharp.
Yeah.
You know, to be a good penalty killing team, everybody has to be able to recognize who they're up against, what the other team is trying to do, and be connected. So if one player's closing off a play, the next player has to get there, and you have to. It has to be like in sync without even thinking about it. And I thought Montreal did a fantastic job in that regard. Number two, I thought Nick Suzuki. I mean, at some point in time, I was waiting for Chris Knobloch to say, I can't keep putting McDavid out here against Nick Suzuki. Nick Suzuki's a brainiac.
Oh, yeah.
And Nick Suzuki, he knew where to cut off McDavid. He knew where McDavid was trying to get to. And to me, there's times as a coach, and I know there's different approaches, and you say, you got to fight through that. There comes a time when you just got to give your best player, and Chris Knobloch's a heck of a coach. I'm not trying to, but I'm speaking more about Nick Suzuki's brilliance and how smart he is and how he played off.
Yeah.
You know, that's how Guy Carbonneau won Selke trophies and got to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
It's that type of brainiac approach to the game. And then number three is when the game was close, Montreal just stayed in their game. So I think that's the how, the why. And what Marty and any coach is trying to do is trying to instill in the team that no matter what the circumstances are, if we play to our strengths and we stay committed, we can have a chance of success. And I think that's when Marty talks about the how.
I think it's I think Jake Evans did an awesome job as well versus Leon Draisaitl. But what I really loved about the way the Canadiens defended on Saturday, they defended in a unit of five. Like, they weren't caught on odd man rushes and stuff like that. They didn't put Connor McDavid in a situation of 2-on-2. Like, every time he picked up the puck or Draisaitl picked up the puck, the Canadiens had five guys back. I think that's a big reason why they won. Mike Matheson wanted to weigh in on their collective game as well. Let's hear from him.
Well, we're definitely playing a much better collective game, more solid as a group defensively, and I feel like our offensive game is starting to come as well without it being at the expense of our defensive game.
And there you have it. Hard to disagree with that. By the way, Matheson also was a beast on Monday, playing 24 minutes and 5 seconds. He had an assist. He was +3. I think that was probably Matheson's best game. So there's a lot of guys who had their best game of the season on Monday. Craig, it's encouraging. Patrik Laine looked pretty comfortable out there today at practice. I mean, he wasn't involved in any contact, but it looks like, the second that he's involved for contact, that I would imagine that his return is just around the corner.
Yeah, well, it's looking that way. And certainly I know Patrik would be hopeful about being able to get in the lineup. And right now, I think the encouraging thing is you want to make sure a player, the stresses that he's going to put on that knee, it's twisting, it's turning, it's shooting off of it, right? And everything that goes with it. You want to make sure that knee is handling all those pressures before you have to take any contact. But these are just now steps along the way and tests that he's going to go through. But the fact that he looks good handling the puck, looks good shooting the puck, that's all positive. And what it means is that the rehabilitation has moved really nicely in the right direction. And hey, listen, Patrik Laine, with his goal scoring ability, it will only help the Montreal Canadiens be a better team and more dangerous offensively.
Yeah, by the way, we saw some highlights from this morning earlier at practice, some signs of frustration from Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook, which I think, look, it's normal for guys who aren't happy with their production at this point, right? I mean, they're happy that they won the game. There's no doubt about it on Monday, but there's guys that get upset during practice if the practice isn't going their way or if their production thus far this season isn't going their way. And you know what? Some people are making a big deal of it. I'm happy to see Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook get upset.
Well, I mean, they're not happy with the way they're playing. They know that they're capable of more, and they want to give more. So when you have players that care, and you have players that are not going to be satisfied with a level of play and a level of production that's below what they think they can do and what they've shown they can do, you're going to be frustrated. It's like you're driving along the highway and you get a flat tire. You're frustrated. You know it's not your fault, but the tire's flat. You got to figure out a way to get a new tire on there. It might be snowing outside. Of course you're going to be frustrated, and it's the same thing with a hockey player. Things aren't going your way, and you try to work through it. And sometimes things just, it's like a boiling pot. Sometimes it just spills over a little bit, but it's no big deal.
Yeah. The Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Betway, a leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go on Betway.com or scan the QR code to join the action. Must be 18 years old and over and play responsibly. Craig, I had Chris Nyland on yesterday. I got his take. I'd love to get your take as well. Jim Montgomery fired after 2.5 seasons with the Boston Bruins with a winning percentage of .715. In the 184 games that he coached at the regular season level, no one in the National Hockey League in the last 184 games has a higher winning percentage. I know I got my opinion on it, and before I share it with you, I'd love to get your opinion on it.
I think Jim's a really good coach. I think he's a very strong coach. I don't think, in my mind, there's no question about it, and from my vantage point. So when we look at the Boston Bruins, and it's interesting because you can start to see how a team is playing and the results they're getting. You start to go, oh no, could there be a coaching change here? And I said this a couple weeks ago. The Boston Bruins have very little skill in their team. They have very little skill. David Pastrnak and Brad Marchand up front. After that, not very much skill. And so, yeah, you want to play a robust game. You want to play. They're not a fast team. They're not a skilled team. Their defensive play has been like in the bottom half of the league, and Jeremy Swayman's been terrible. Now, is that did Jim Montgomery put the team together? Did he the contract? I mean, I know that goes on. That's business. Jimmy goes, I got to deal with business. Defensive play? Yeah, that's under your domain. You better get that better. But the lack of skill and the lack of foot speed on their team, the lack of speed, that's not Jimmy's fault. So he pays a price. You are
so right. I mean, he's the second best forward on that team. He's 36 years old and in his 15th season.
Yeah. Well, I think they're tracking. I think I read something where Pasternak's tracking at 70 or 75 points. Marchand's tracking at 55. And Elias Lindholm's at 37 points. They just don't have enough skill up front. So, and then your goaltender's playing garbage. And Jeremy Swayman's better than that. But what it shows you is that, missing preseason, everything that goes with it and everything. But you know who else is playing like garbage? Linus Ullmark.
Yeah. Yeah. You mean, what do you mean? Ullmark with the Senators? I don't know.
He's playing like garbage too.
Oh, yeah. I hear you. I hear what you're saying. Look, I'm going to tell you this. There's no doubt that the Bruins haven't had playoff success over the last couple of years, okay? And if people want, they can point their finger at Jimmy, and that's fine, okay? I think that's fair, right? Because ultimately, his playoff record was nowhere close to his regular season record, and based on his regular season numbers, he should have performed better in the playoffs. I think he overachieved with that team in the last 2 years. That's what I don't think people are getting. I don't think the Boston Bruins on paper are a 715% winning team over the last 2 years. I think Jim Montgomery, I'm not going to call it a miracle, but I think he did rather amazing work. Having said that, so think about this. He did amazing work in the regular season, but there were some disappointments in the playoffs. He's in the final year of his contract. They haven't extended him yet. He's probably wondering how much time he wants to be with the Bruins because he probably looks at them and he's probably thinking the same thing that we are. They never really replaced Bergeron. They never really replaced Krejci. They never really replaced Zdeno Chara. The future of the organization looks, maybe they need a rebuild, even though they have a couple of good, fine young players. But so he's probably not sure. But Don Sweeney and Cam Neely probably say, you know what? If we don't fire him, the onus is probably on us. Now, I don't know whether that's fair or not, but that's just how I feel. Now, having said that, I do think this. The optics of him and Marchand, even though Marchand said today that, the players feel terrible, they let down a real good coach and a real good person. The second that he gave it to Marchand on the bench on October 20th and gave him the tug, and the second that he benched David Pastrnak, when you do that with your two best forwards, it's because you're probably playing your last card. I don't know if Jimmy thought that things were slipping away, whether he thought, you know what, I got to go for it here now, and if I win, I win. I get my team back, and if I don't, who knows? I don't know, but usually when you're at odds with your two best players, it's easier to replace the coach than the two best players.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the last comment. And any manager will tell you that when you're changing the coach, it's not done lightly. It's not just, well, let's just get rid of the coach. And you're trying to give the coach every opportunity to get the team on the right track, to get them back to what you think they can be. And then you come to a point, and there's many different things that lead you to that point. And the two you just pointed out certainly had to be contributing factors. Don Sweeney only knows how much of a contributing factor it was, but it doesn't change the fact that, to your point about Jimmy overachieving with the team, they set a record 2 years ago that was the best regular season record in the history of the NHL. They lost in Game 7 in overtime to the Florida Panthers. So I don't know how it turns out. They had a lot of injuries down the stretch. They had everything sewn up, and they had some players that weren't healthy and available. Then they come back last year, and they have a good season, and players had career years. You're right. No Bergeron, no Krejci. And then they come back, and, oh, boy, they have this ability last year to get career years out of players. Well, as my friend Mike Johnson says, the reason they have career years is because that's the first time they're at that elevation, and they're not going to get there again. Now they go and you look at where they're at. They've traded first-round draft picks. They've traded prospects to try to give this team and the group of players a chance to keep winning. And it just didn't work. They had to trade Allmark. Swayman's in a contract holdout. Now you're thinner. You're not as deep. You don't have the influx of young players. You don't have the skill. It's a real problem. I agree with you about Jimmy. I'm not saying that there wasn't contributing factors that led Don Sweeney to say a change is needed, but at the same time, I agree. Jimmy did a magnificent job with this group.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about how Jim Montgomery can help another franchise going forward, maybe on another edition of the Sick Podcast. Craig, always fun talking with you. The Canadiens' next game, they host the Vegas Golden Knights. And then next week, you and I will discuss the schedule. I think you're going to join me on Thursday of next week because the Canadiens play on Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, for sure. I will talk to you then. And in the meantime, you have a really good happy birthday celebration on Saturday with all your friends and loved ones. And next time we talk, you'll just have you'll have a different digit on your age.
As a matter of fact, I'm happy to say, I was supposed to go out with my friends and enjoy my birthday, but I had to cancel that. Instead, I'm going to be in Drummondville because Soccer Quebec has nominated me. And actually, I've won the award for best media coverage for soccer in the province of Quebec. So I'm going to accept my award with a lot of pride and humility.
Well,
so
you're unselfish. You're unselfish, and congratulations, Tony.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm very honored. Thank you, Craig. Always an honor to have you on the Sick Podcast. Thank you very much. There you have it. Craig Button of TSN, their director of scouting and their hockey analyst. Marinaro, a shout out to Paul Montreal, PEAUmontreal.com. 2 locations. I've told you that before. Montreal is one. The West Island is another. Dr. Manish Khanna. This guy is absolutely something. He and his team use the latest cosmetic technologies for laser injections, fillers, body contouring, facial treatments. Check out PaulMontreal.com. Check out Paul Montreal on Instagram. Jot down this number. Give him a call tomorrow to book an appointment, 514-989-7328. Special thanks to all of you for watching, all of you for listening. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. By the way, we have a quiz that's out there. It's a weekly quiz. How well do you know the Habs roster? The link is in our YouTube description and on all socials. Take the quiz. I'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place, the Sick Podcast. Special thanks to Shane Gaumont on Master Control. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.